I pretended to be someone's girlfriend. For 10 seconds. That was all it took to ruin my life. The lecture hall was already half asleep when the professor glanced at her tablet. Back at row. Silence. Then I lifted my hand like I belonged there. Professor Rose's eyes flicked up. Sharp. Amused. Ha. I could have sworn Becket would. I let out a long tragic sigh like I'd been practicing for an Oscar. I'm his girlfriend. He's sick. I'm here to take notes so he doesn't fall behind. A few people snorted. Someone behind me whispered, "No way." Professor Rowe nodded, slowly like she was filing my soul into a cabinet. Okay, cute. Then she smiled. Way too sweet to be harmless. Don't leave after class, she said. You're coming with me. We're going to go meet your boyfriend. I didn't have a lot of classes that term, which meant I had a lot of time to be broke in creative ways, so I took gigs. There was this campus group called New Side Hustles, where people posted things like, need someone to wait in line for concert tickets, looking for a girl to pretend to be my ex so my mom stops praying. We'll pay $40 for someone to sit through my 3-hour lecture and send notes. That last one, my kind of business. That afternoon someone posted, need notes. 3 back-to-back lectures. Biggie hole. Easy, professor. $60. I replied before my brain could warn me. I got you. They messaged me the class info, room number, and the name Becket Row, plus a few instructions. Just send pics of slides. Plus notes. Don't talk. Don't get noticed. Perfect. I showed up early, slid into a seat, pulled out my laptop, and even opened my English assignment. Like a responsible citizen. I'd heard the professor was some friendly older guy who barely took attendance. No attendance, no questions, easy money. The bell rang and the woman walked in. Not a friendly older guy. A woman with that calm, I will end you politely energy. She set her designer tote down, opened her laptop, and started loading slides like she owned the building. I double-checked the room number, the time, the course title. Everything matched. I leaned toward the girl next to me and whispered, "Isn't this class taught by a dude?" She looked just as confused. Yeah, it was. Maybe they swapped last minute. Professor Rowe cleared her throat. Professor Shock had a personal emergency. She said, "I'm filling in today." Then she held up her tablet. Lettres d'attendance. My stomach dropped so hard I swear it hit the basement. Attendance? Of course. I pulled up the message again and stared at the name like it might save me. Back at row. I raised my hand with the confidence of a woman who makes terrible decisions and commits to them fully. Professor Rowe stared at me, then at her roster, then back at me. Ralph furrowed. I thought Becket Rowe was a guy. I froze, then looked at the girl beside me with my eyes screaming for help. She nodded slowly. He is, she said. He's kind of famous here. Basketball captain. Oh my God. Okay, think. Lie better. I softened my face and put on my most wounded girlfriend voice. I'm his girlfriend. He's sick. He didn't want to miss class, so he asked me to take notes. Professor Rose's mouth twitched like she was trying not to laugh. She said, "Got it." I relaxed for exactly half a second. Then she added, still smiling, "Don't leave after class. I want to ask you something." That smile was a warning. The rest of class blurred. I couldn't absorb a single word. All I could think was, I'm about to get this boy murdered by his professor. During the break, I did what every American college student does before making any moral decision. I panic Googled. I pulled up the university website, found her profile, then searched her name. Professor Maurice Rowe. Department leadership. Unrate my professor. Someone had literally written she can smell a lie. Great. I messaged Becket. "Callie, hey, you might be in trouble." "Callie, did she catch me?" Also, it's not the chill male professor today. It's a strict lady. Finally, Becket replied. Becket, not a big deal. That was not comforting. That was the sentence someone says right before the building explodes. I decided That if I was going to pretend to be his girlfriend, I should at least know something about him besides the fact that he was apparently hot, athletic, and allergic to responsibility. So I asked around quietly. What I learned was depressing. Becket row, basketball. Captain, computer science major lives. For practice games and protein doesn't eat much. Basically, a golden retriever with a jump shot. And the reason he skipped an away game overlapped with class. He chose the game classic. Becket. After 3 straight lectures, Professor Rowe closed her laptop and looked straight at me. Becket. Rose's girlfriend, she said like that was my legal name. Now come with me. I followed her like I was being escorted to trial. Her office screamed, tenure and I don't lose. She studied me. What's your name? Callie, I said. What year? Major hobbies? I answered like was in a job interview. 2nd year. Modern languages. I go to concerts. I'm normal. She nodded, thoughtful. Same year as Becket. Interesting. Then she leaned forward slightly, her voice suddenly softer. Is he good to you? Does he have a temper? Has he ever made you feel uncomfortable? My brain scrambled. Why was his professor? I shook my head. Fussed. He's great. We're solid, very stable. Professor Rowe looked satisfied, like she just confirmed a theory. Good, she said. Then you'll come to my place for dinner tonight. I blinked. Sorry. What? She smiled, warm and terrifying at once. Dinner? You can see Becket there? I stared, trying to find the trap. She tilted her head, eyes sparkling. Relax. If you don't come, your boyfriend's going to fail this class. And just like that, my easy note-taking gig turned into a hostage negotiation. Professor Rowe's house wasn't some tiny apartment near campus. It was a clean, expensive townhouse a few neighborhoods over. Quiet street, little porch light, the kind of place that smells like lemon, cleaner and success. She took my hand, like I was already family, and guided me inside. Bex has got his issues, she said, casually, like she was describing a dog with separation anxiety. You'll have to be patient with him. I nodded like knew his issues. I did not. Then she led me into the living room and pointed at a wall covered in framed photos, a family photo wall. And that's when I saw him. Back at Rowe, not in person but in pictures. And something in my chest clicked. I knew that face. I'd seen him at the gym before, not up close, more like in the background of my roommate's obsession. My roommate loved basketball players the way some people love reality TV, loudly and with zero shame. Once, during a game between our department and the CS guys, a ball came flying toward us. I barely had time to flinch. A hand shot over my head and caught it clean. I turned, and there he was, tall, sweaty, smiling like a saint. You okay? He'd asked, gentle, like he actually cared. My roommate had grabbed my arm afterward and breathed, "Oh my God, he's unreal." I'd said, "Yeah, he's stupid hot." Back in the townhouse, Professor Roku kept pointing. That's middle school. Played basketball constantly, always sunburned. That's elementary. Then her finger landed on the last photo. I leaned in. Becket is a little kid, squatting in a yard in what could only be described as diaper-adjacent shorts. The worst part, a cute magnet was placed over the sensitive area like a censorship sticker. Professor Rowe grinned and slid the magnet aside. Just a peek, she whispered. Don't tell him. I didn't even get a chance to look away. That image burned itself into my brain like a cursed tattoo. Then there was a knock at the door. Professor Rowe turned to me like this was the most natural thing in the world. That'll be back. He never carries his keys. Go open it. I tried to say no. She physically guided me toward the door, like I was a prop in her plan. I opened it. Becket Rose stood there with a basketball tucked under his arm, sweat on his forehead, hair messy like he just wrecked someone's day on the court. Froze. Then he stepped back and looked at the house number like the address had betrayed him. I'm pretty sure I didn't walk into the wrong house, he muttered. I lifted my hand and smiled sweetly. Hi, nice to meet you, boyfriend. His smile stayed on his face like it hadn't been informed the situation was insane. Yet, Professor Rowe popped her head out. Behind me, cheerful surprise. Your girlfriend took notes for you today, and I brought her home. I figured you'd want to see her. Becket blinked once, then, like a switch flipped, he leaned in with effortless athlete charm. Mom, he said, smoothly, you can't just bring Callie home without warning me. I didn't even get a chance to prepare. He said it like he'd said it 1,000 times. The scariest part was how natural it sounded. Professor Rose stared at us for a beat, recalculating the universe. Then she laughed. Well, you two catch up. I'm making dinner. Your dad will be home soon. Let's surprise him too. The second she disappeared into the kitchen, Becket dropped onto the couch beside me and lowered his voice. Oh, he whispered. We need to sync our story. I frowned. What story? He nodded toward the kitchen. My mom subbed in today, didn't she? She's brutal. If she finds out I skipped, I'm dead. So we're doing this. We're doing the girlfriend thing properly. I stared at him. He was calm, strategic, like this wasn't a romance scam, but a group project. Fine, I said. What do we know about each other? He reached for my phone without hesitation. First, your contacts. He opened our iMessage thread and renamed himself with a heart emoji. I just watched like my body had been temporarily unplugged. Your turn, he said, handing my phone back. Change mine if she checks. We need it clean. I swallowed. This costs extra. He grinned. Not a problem. He took my phone again and renamed himself Beck. Bear. I physically flinched. That's so cringe. He shrugged. Cringes. Believable. Moms love cringe. Then he leaned back like we were negotiating a contract. Okay. We've been together 5 months. I fell for you first. I chased you. He listed it off like a presentation. First time we met, I saved you. I blinked. That sounds familiar. It should, he said. Because it's true. Hold on. I cut in. If you saved me, shouldn't I have fallen for you? Becket paused, actually thinking. Then he looked at me. Did you fall for me? I shook my head. He spread his hands. Then, there you go. If you didn't fall, the only option is me being hopeless. I hate that logic. Worked on me. Fine, I said. Hopeless works. He nodded, satisfied. We also need a couple photo. I glanced at the photo wall like it might offer guidance. Becket stood up and started scouting angles in the house like he was filming content. No too obvious. It looked like we took it today in my mom's living room. Then he snapped his fingers. I played against your department, right? Did you ever come watch? I hesitated. Yeah, with my roommate. Every muscle in his body stilled like my confession had fed his ego. He lowered his voice. You sure you didn't fall for me? The air between us went taut like someone had pulled an invisible string through the room and tied it to my heartbeat. Yeah, I said. Because lying was apparently my new minor with my roommate. Becket's mouth twitched like he was trying to decide whether to be smug or terrified. That's great, he said. And the way he said great made it sound like a traitor. Before I could ask what his next brilliant plan was, he leaned in, voice low. Okay, couple photo. We need something that looks old, like not taken in this house, not taken today, not taken under my mother's watchful eye of doom. I don't have 5 months of fake memories in my camera roll, I whispered. He nodded like he'd already considered that. Then we make one memory, he said. Tonight outside somewhere neutral. Neutral like your front porch. Pointed at me like I'd finally said something intelligent. Yes. Neutral like outside in the dark where it's believable we've been standing too close. Because we're annoying. I stared at him. You want a staged picture of us being cringe on your porch so your mom can't fail you? He gave me an apologetic smile. When you say it like that, it sounds bad. It is bad. Okay, he said. Quickly, but it's also temporary, like a week 2 until the midterm. Then I'm back in her good graces and you get your money plus a bonus. I narrowed my eyes. How much of a bonus? He opened his wallet like a man who had never once experience shame. He pulled out a couple of bills and slid them toward me. On the coffee table. My eyes widened. That's a down payment on your silence, he said. I scooped it up so fast I almost sprained my dignity. Fine, whispered. I'm your girlfriend for now, but I'm setting boundaries. Great, he said, relieved. What are your boundaries? No pet names, I said. He glanced at my phone. Too late, I glared. And no touching, I added. No random hand. On waist stuff. No babe in public. No. The kitchen light flicked on. Both of us sat up like we'd just been caught cheating on a final exam. Professor. Rose's voice floated out bright and dangerous. Callie, honey, can you help me set the table? Becket's expression went blank. She called you honey. I stood up slowly, smoothing my shirt like I was about to meet a judge. She's doing psychological warfare, I murmured. Stay strong, he mouthed. Good luck. Like I was walking into battle. I went into the kitchen and found Professor Rowe pulling plates from a cabinet with calm efficiency. Everything in her kitchen looked expensive but not flashy. Clean lines, sharp knives, a spice rack arranged like it had been alphabetized for fun. Do you cook a lot? I asked because small talk was the only weapon I had left. I do, she said. It's cheaper than therapy. I blinked. That's honestly fair. She slid a stack of plates toward me. Set those out. 4 places. 4. I repeated before my brain caught up. Your dad? She smiled and it was gentle enough to be almost normal. He'll be home soon. The word soon made my stomach tighten. Soon meant I was about to meet the other half of the Rowe household, and I had exactly 7 minutes of being fake dated to his son under duress. I set the plates down with hands that were only slightly shaking. So, Professor Rowe said casually, how did you and Beck meet? I almost dropped a fork. I started. She turned her head, watching me with interest, like this was a lab experiment and I was the mouse. We met during a departmental game, I said quickly because that part was real enough to cling to. A ball came flying and he caught it. Oh, that story, she said like she'd heard it 1,000 times. My throat went dry. You've heard it, she hummed. He tells it like he saved someone from a meteor. It did feel meteor adjacent, I said weakly. He laughed softly and went back to chopping vegetables, totally unbothered by the fact that she was interrogating me with a chef's knife. 5 months, she said. I froze. I'm sorry. Beck told me, she said. 5 months. That's a meaningful amount of time. I nodded like 5 months was a number I had chosen on purpose and not one he had pulled from the sky. Yes. Very meaningful. And you're the same year, she continued. Which is interesting because you said it was interesting. I thought out loud, I said. We have similar schedules. She said, and he's been good to you. Yes, I said too. Fussed. So good. Very good. Like a golden retriever. She paused, knife hovering. A golden retriever. She repeated. Loyal, I said. Friendly. Sometimes confused but well-intentioned. Professor Rowe's mouth twitched. That's not inaccurate. Then she turned fully to face me. Callie, she said softly. I'm going to ask you one more thing. And I want a real answer. My heart dropped into my shoes. Okay, I whispered. Does Becket talk to you about school? I blinked. That was not what I expected. He complains about it, I said. In the way all humans complain about things that require effort. She nodded slowly. And for the first time since I'd met her, she looked tired. He hates disappointing people, she said almost to herself. But he loves avoiding the moment where disappointment becomes real. I swallowed. That sounds complicated. It is, she said. Then she smiled again, and it was back to being warm and terrifying. Okay, table set. Go rescue him from his own conscience. I walked back into the living room and found Becket standing in front of the photo wall, staring at his childhood like he was considering running away and joining a monastery. Your mom asked how we met, I whispered. He winced. What did you say? The truth, I said. Mostly a ball. Your hero moment. His shoulders relaxed. Good. That story sells. It also makes you sound like you collect damsels in distress as a hobby, I said. He looked at me mock offended. I saved you from face trauma and then you used that to blackmail me into a fake relationship, I said. He held up his hands. Different semester, different vibe. The front door clicked, everything in my body locked. Professor Rowe called out, we're in here. Footsteps. A male voice, deep, amused. Smells like you're trying to impress someone. Becket muttered. Oh God. A man stepped into the living room wearing a dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, a jacket slung over his arm. He had the kind of calm confidence that came from being the parent who didn't need to raise his voice to be obeyed. His eyes landed on me, then on Becket, then back on me. Hi, I said, because if I didn't speak first, I might evaporate. Professor Rowe appeared behind him, hands on his shoulders like she was presenting a prize. Elliot, she said cheerfully. This is Callie, Becket's girlfriend. Elliot. Rowe stared at Becket with a slow, dawning expression of a man watching a magic trick. Becket smiled so hard it looked painful. Surprise. Elliot blinked. You have a girlfriend? Yes. Becket said. Obviously. Elliot's eyes flicked to me, scanning my face like he was trying to decide if I was real. You are real, he said slowly. I am, said. Very real. Professor Rowe patted his chest. Breathe. Let them live. Elliot finally shook his head, laughing under his breath. Maurice, you cannot just bring girlfriends on people like it's a holiday. Becket leaned toward me and whispered, he's taking it better than I expected. I whispered back, that's because he hasn't heard us talk yet. Dinner was a blur of polite questions and silent screaming. Elliot asked me about my major. I answered. Professor Rowe asked me about my family. I carefully gave vague, harmless details that couldn't be fact-checked. Becket ate like a man who had been training for a competition called Survive Your Parents. At one point, Elliot looked at Becket and said, so you're seeing someone and you didn't tell us. Becket swallowed a bite too fast and coughed. Professor Rose sipped her water and said calmly, he's a private person. Elliot raised an eyebrow. Or he's hiding things. Becket laughed too loudly. Me? Hide things? Never. Elliot's gaze sharpened. Beck. Professor Rose said gently, how was your day? Becket's eyes flicked to me for half a second. Fine, he said. Busy with what? She asked. He hesitated. Stuff. I could feel her patience thin in real time. Elliot sat down his fork. Becket. Becket's jaw clenched. Professor Rowe didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Did you go to class today? Becket opened his mouth. Nothing came out. In that second I realized something. This wasn't just about him skipping. This was about the exact pattern she described. Avoid the moment where disappointment becomes real. He'd rather juggle a fake girlfriend than say I messed up. My throat tightened. I set my fork down. Actually, I said, and every head turned toward me. He didn't. He had an awake game aim. Becket's eyes widened like I just shot him. Professor Rose stared at me. Elliot stared at Becket. The entire universe held its breath. Becket, whispered Callie. I kept going because I was already falling off a cliff and might as well do it with posture. He should have told you, I said, voice steady. And he should have told you himself. But he didn't skip because he doesn't care. He skipped because he thought he could fix it later. Professor Rose's face didn't change, but her eyes softened slightly. Elliot exhaled. Becket. Becket looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. I can make it up, he muttered. Professor Rand nodded once. You will. Then she looked at me again. And I felt like she could see every lie I'd ever told in my entire life. Thank you, she said quietly. I blinked. For snitching. For telling the truth, she corrected, even when it's uncomfortable. Becket stared at me like I betrayed him and saved him at the same time. After dinner, Elliot went to take a call. Professor Rose started washing dishes. Even though the kitchen was already clean enough to be a showroom, Becket tugged my sleeve and whispered, outside. Now we slipped out onto the porch like fugitives. The night air hit my face, cold and sharp, and I inhaled, like it was oxygen after drowning. Becket turned to me, eyes wide, voice low. What was that? That, I said, was me, having a nervous breakdown but making it educational. You just told them, he hissed. You told them everything. I told them the truth, I said. The truth is not everything. Everything includes the part where you bribed me and renamed yourself Bear. He groaned, dragging a hand down his face. I'm dead. You're not dead, I said. Your mom literally thanked me, which is insane. He stared out at the street, jaw tight. She set this up. I frowned. What do you mean? He shook his head once, like he hated admitting it. She knew. Knew what? That I skipped. He said that I tried to dodge, that I'd send someone. She knew I'd do something stupid. She probably recognized your handwriting style from the notes. My stomach dipped. My handwriting style? Your typing? Corrected, still tense. Whatever. Ace. Like that. I leaned against the porch railing. So what now? You're grounded? Do college students get grounded? He let out a humorless laugh. No, I just get disappointed looks. Which is worse. We stood in silence for a second. The porch light hummed softly above us. Then Becket cleared his throat. We still need the photo. I stared at him. You are unbelievable. He lifted his hands. Callie, please. If she thinks you're real, she'll stop hovering. She'll let me breathe. She'll back off, or I said, she'll invite me to Thanksgiving. Winced. Okay. Yeah. Worst case. Why is your mom like this? I asked, softer now. Becket stared at the sidewalk, voice quieter. Because she worries. That's not an answer. He swallowed. I had a rough first year. My chest tightened. Rough. How? He hesitated, then exhaled. Pressure, expectations, scholarship stuff. I almost lost eligibility. They nearly benched me. And my mom. He cut himself off, jaw flexing. She doesn't do helpless. I stared at him, the golden retriever with a jump shot, suddenly looking like a person with weight on his shoulders. Oh, I said quietly. He looked at me, something vulnerable flickering through the charm. So yeah, she's intense, but she's not trying to ruin you. I raised an eyebrow. She literally blackmailed me. Grimaced. She blackmailed you politely. That is not better. He stepped closer and pulled out his phone. Photo, quick. Just one. I stared at him. Not dashing. He nodded. Not dashing. We can do shoulder proximity like awkward prom, I said. Yes, he said. Exactly. He held the phone up, angled it, and we leaned in. Just enough to look like we tolerated each other voluntarily. Smile. Whispered. I forced a smile that probably looked like I was being held hostage. He snapped the photo. Then he looked at it and grinned. Perfect. I leaned over to see it. Under the porch light. We looked weirdly good together. Like a couple who argued in the comments of each other's posts, but still made matching playlists. Delete it, I said. Immediately. He laughed. No, Becket, he warned. He took the phone away like it was classified information. Thank you, Callie. I stared at him. For what? For saving me from my mom, he said then, softer. And for not making me look like the worst version of myself. I swallowed, annoyed by the warmth that tried to bloom in my chest. Don't get sentimental, I said. It makes the scam feel emotional. He grinned. Too late. You already met my dad. We went back inside. Professor Rowe glanced up from the sink, eyes flicking to our faces like she could read the entire porch conversation off my expression. Everything okay? She asked. Becket said smoothly. We were just getting air. Professor Rowe's gaze lingered for a beat. Then she smiled, satisfied like a chess player watching a piece land exactly where she wanted. Good, she said. Callie, thank you for coming. I nodded. Of course. Becket nudged me toward the entryway. I'll walk you out. Professor Rowe dried her hands. Becket, don't keep her too long. She has studying to do. Becket froze. I froze. Elliot looked up. From his phone, amused. Studying? Professor Rowe's smile didn't falter. Callie, she said sweetly, is helping Becket catch up on what he missed. My throat went dry. I opened my mouth to protest. Becket prayed her that he was. Said, yes she is. Professor Rowe nodded. Once like this had been settled by a court. Wonderful, she said. Then I won't worry. On the walk back to campus, Becca kept his hands in his pockets like he was trying to behave. You're going to kill me, I said. He glanced down at me. Probably. I'm not tutoring you, I said. He smiled. Okay. Not tutoring. Just hanging out with educational undertones. You are the worst, I muttered. And you, he said, voice light, are the only person who's ever told my mother the truth and lived. I shot him a look. I didn't live. Ave. Been spiritually murdered. He laughed. And it hit me like a problem. His laugh was nice, warm, easy, not manipulative, not performative, annoyingly real. When we reached my dorm, he stopped under the street light. So he said, 5 months. I groaned. Don't. He grinned. That bear. Stop. Couple studying. He continued, clearly enjoying my misery. You and me. Library tomorrow. I stared at him. No. E. said. He tilted his head. Callie. I narrowed my eyes. Don't use my name like that. Like you know me. He softened his voice. Callie. If you don't show up, my mom will show up. My blood ran cold. She wouldn't, I whispered. He smiled with absolute certainty. She would. I closed my eyes. Fine, I said. One library session. His grin widened. Great. And I added quickly. This is still a job. Of course, he said. Paid, I said. Yes, he said. No pet names, I said. Considered, then sighed dramatically. Fine. I turned to go, then paused. Becket, I said. He looked at me. Yeah. If your mom knew, I said slowly. Why did she still bring me to dinner? Something shifted in his expression. Less cocky. More thoughtful. She likes you, he said. Quietly. I scoffed. She blackmailed me. She only blackmails people she thinks can handle it, he said. That is not a compliment. He shrugged. It is in my house. I stared at him for a second, then shook my head and walked away. I got up to my room, collapsed onto my bed and stared at the ceiling like it might offer a refund. My phone buzzed. A text from Becket, Bear Library. 2 p.m. Don't be late. Then another buzz. A new message from an unknown number. Professor Rowe, thank you again for tonight. I'm glad Beck has someone steady. I stared at the screen, horrified. Callie, hi, Professor Rowe. I'm happy to help. Then I deleted it and rewrote it 6 times because every version sounded guilty. When I finally tossed my phone aside, my brain did something cruel. It replayed the porch photo, the way we looked like we belonged. And the worst part wasn't that I was caught in the lie. The worst part was that the lie was starting to feel like a door, and I had no idea what would happen if I stepped through it. Epilogue. 2 weeks later, I was still Becket Rowe's girlfriend. Not officially, not publicly, but in the way that mattered most in Professor Rose's mind. It started with 1 library session, then 2. Then suddenly Becket was texting me things like, what time are you free? And I saved you a seat and don't wear that sweater unless you want my mom to adopt you on the spot. Didn't touch me. He didn't call me babe. He mostly behaved mostly. And I kept telling myself it was just a gig until the day I walked into the gym to drop off his notes and a teammate shouted, Yo Beck, your girl's here. And Becket looked up, sweat on his forehead, hair messy. That same saint smile from my memory. He jogged over, took the folder from my hands and said quietly, hey, just hey, like it was normal, like I was expected, like I belonged there. Then he leaned in, voice low enough that only I could hear. My mom's coming to the game tonight, he murmured. She wants to see you. I stared at him. Why? Shrugged, trying to look casual, failing slightly. She says you're good for me. I scoffed. I'm literally your lie. He looked at me. I steady. Yeah, he said. But you're also the first person who didn't let me run. My throat tightened. In a way I refused to acknowledge. Stepped back, smile flickering again. So game tonight? I opened my mouth to say no. To say I was broke, not insane. To say this was temporary. Instead, I heard myself sigh like the woman I'd pretended to be in that lecture hall. Fine, I said. But you owe me. Becket's grin turned bright and effortless. Not a problem, he said. And just like that, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't sure who was pretending anymore.